She taught the billionaire to love again. When billionaire tech mogul Brandon Morgan loses his wife, his world collapses, leaving behind a daughter he can't comfort and a home echoing with grief. Enter Camila Reyes, a struggling housekeeper from the Bronx with a secret strength for healing broken hearts. Hired by accident, she manages to calm Brandon's inconsolable baby and unknowingly stirs something long buried inside him. As walls begin to crumble, a candlelit night changes everything with a kiss. But when a devastating secret from the past surfaces, it threatens to destroy the fragile bond they've built. Fired, heartbroken, gone, until a second chance and a desperate drive across state lines forces Brandon to confront what he truly can't live without. Will Brandon choose love over pride and truth over fear? Can Camila learn to trust the man who once pushed her away? And is it ever too late to rewrite the story of a family? It was a grey, wet afternoon in Seattle, the kind where the clouds felt heavy enough to touch. Rain tapped relentlessly against the massive windows of the Morgan penthouse overlooking Puget Sound. Inside, tension gripped every room, especially the nursery. Brandon Morgan, a tech billionaire still reeling from the tragic loss of his wife 3 months ago, paced with his phone in one hand and a trembling bottle in the other. "I don't care what it costs. Find me another nanny," he barked into the phone before slamming it onto the marble counter. His voice cracked. His hands ran through his dishevelled hair. 8-month-old Ava, his daughter, screamed from her crib for the 6th hour straight. No nanny had lasted more than a few days. The last one quit via text message at 3 a.m., calling the job impossible. Ava refused to eat. She refused to sleep. She only cried, endlessly, helplessly, as if mourning someone only she understood. Downstairs, Camila Reyes, a part-time housekeeper from the Bronx, scrubbed the crystal banister, her earbuds in, her mind elsewhere. She'd taken the emergency shift for extra pay, money she needed to help her mom back in the Dominican Republic. She'd been in Seattle for only 4 months and still felt like a visitor in someone else's life. Then she heard it. Through the music in her ears, Ava's cries broke through like a fire alarm. But this wasn't hunger or fatigue. Camila knew that kind of crying from helping raise her cousins. This was something deeper, raw, like a broken heart in the form of sound. She hesitated. This wasn't her place, but then instinct took over. She climbed the sweeping staircase toward the whales. On the 2nd floor, a door hung ajar. The cries became clearer, more desperate. Camila stepped inside. The room was beautiful, designer furniture, pastel walls, but in the center of it all was chaos. Ava, red-faced and soaked in sweat, kicked and flailed in her crib. Her diaper sagged heavily. Her onesie was damp and twisted. "Hello," Camila called out. No answer. She bit her lip. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered, but her feet were already moving, her hands already reaching. "Hey, sweetheart," she murmured, voice barely above a breath. "Let's get you cleaned up, huh?" She found fresh clothes and wipes in the dresser. Every motion was gentle, practiced, almost sacred. When she lifted Ava from the crib, the baby stiffened, then collapsed into Camila's chest as if she'd been waiting for her all this time. Camila rocked her slowly, humming an old Spanish lullaby her abuela used to sing. Bit by bit, Ava's cries softened into hiccups. Her small fingers curled around Camila's gold necklace. Her eyes fluttered. Peace, for the first time in weeks, entered the room. Then the door slammed. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Camila froze. Standing in the doorway was Brandon Morgan, tall, tired, angry. But under the tailored suit and stormy eyes, something else stirred. Fear. Fear and heartbreak. She was crying. No one was here, I thought. "You thought you could touch my daughter without permission?" he snapped, approaching. Camila backed up but held Ava gently. She was soaked and screaming. "I just wanted to help," she said. "Give her to me." Camila handed Ava over reluctantly, but as soon as Brandon held her, the crying returned with volcanic intensity. She shrieked, pushing at him, searching for the woman who'd brought her calm. Brandon looked dumbfounded. "What? Why won't she?" "She's hungry," Camila said quietly, and her diaper was in awful shape. He looked at her sharply, then down at his daughter, really looked for the first time. Guilt flashed in his eyes. "Have you taken care of babies before?" "Yes, my cousins, and I worked as a nanny in the Bronx before moving here." There was a pause, a strange quiet in the air. Brandon stepped forward again, his voice softer. "Would you take her again?" Camila hesitated but reached out. Ava instantly quieted, nuzzling her face into Camila's neck. Brandon stared. "What's your name?" "Camila Reyes. I work for West Coast Cleaners. You're not from around here." "No, I'm from New York. I came to help my mom. She's sick." Brandon studied her, then the child in her arms, so peaceful it was like magic. "Can you make her bottle?" he asked suddenly. "It's in the kitchen." Camila nodded and headed downstairs with Ava. In the sleek stainless steel kitchen, she prepared the formula with muscle memory. Ava drank steadily, her eyes never leaving Camila's. Brandon leaned in the doorway, silent, watching, thinking. "When do you finish cleaning today?" he asked. "In about an hour." "When you're done, come to my office. I have a proposition." Camila blinked, unsure what he meant. But as she looked down at Ava, who had now drifted into a peaceful nap in her arms, something in her heart shifted. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she belonged somewhere. By the end of the week, Camila Reyes was no longer just a housekeeper. She moved into the guest quarters on the second floor of Brandon Morgan's penthouse, a sleek, cold space that felt more like a tech lab than a home. But slowly, subtly, things began to change. The first morning, Camila woke early to the sound of Ava stirring in her crib. She padded in barefoot, hair in a messy bun, and picked up the sleepy-eyed baby who greeted her with soft, eager coos. It had only been days, but the bond between them had already become unmistakable. "She remembers you," Brandon said from the doorway, watching them with arms folded, still half in disbelief. "Babies remember who makes them feel safe," Camila replied simply. That morning, after feeding and bathing Ava, Camila did something unexpected. She made breakfast. Not the kind with egg white omelettes and overpriced granola like Brandon's nutritionist used to recommend. She made mango, mashed plantains with sautéed onions and fried eggs, comfort food from her childhood. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. It just made her feel grounded. Brandon came into the kitchen, still in his white shirt and tie, on autopilot. He stopped when he saw the steaming plates and smelled the caramelized onion. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "Nope," Camila answered without looking up. "But you haven't eaten anything since Tuesday." He hesitated, then sat. One bite, then another, and then silence. Camila smiled to herself. The man who'd built a billion-dollar cloud empire was speechless over mashed plantains. From that morning on, something shifted. Dudding sons. Camila didn't just care for Ava, she transformed the house. She opened windows that had stayed shut for months, dusted off picture frames that still held wedding photos Brandon couldn't bear to look at. She filled the kitchen with the smell of garlic and cilantro, and soft Latin jazz played quietly in the background as she moved about. She didn't ask permission. She just brought life where there had only been grief. Ava blossomed under her care. She giggled more, cried less, learned to wave. Her feeding schedule became steady, her naps predictable, and she smiled every time Camila walked into the room. And Brandon? He changed, too. He started cancelling late meetings. He began arriving home in time for dinner, something his assistants whispered about in confusion. At first he would just sit at the table in silence while Camila fed Ava. Then he started joining them, first a forkful, then full meals, then conversation. "Did you always want to be a nanny?" he asked one evening. "Not really," Camila said, wiping Ava's face. "I wanted to be a teacher. But dreams are expensive." Brandon said nothing, but his eyes lingered on her longer that night. Then came the power outage. It was a Friday evening, the first quiet one in weeks. Camila had just finished bathing Ava when the lights blinked once, then went out entirely. "Oh no," she whispered. Ava let out a startled cry. She reached for a towel and held the baby close, rocking her softly as she walked down the darkened hallway. "Camila?" Brandon's voice echoed from downstairs. Moments later he appeared in the hall, holding a flashlight. "Are you okay?" "We're fine. Just surprised," she said. "I was about to put her to bed." "Let me help." Together, by the soft glow of Brandon's flashlight, they finished dressing Ava and tucked her into bed. She didn't cry this time. She seemed curious, her little fingers reaching for the shadows on the wall. Once she was asleep, Brandon lit a few candles in the living room. The warm glow transformed the space. The glass and steel of the penthouse softened into amber warmth. Camila sat on the plush rug near the fireplace, hugging her knees. Brandon joined her, sitting a little too close, but not close enough to startle her. For a while they just listened to the quiet. "It feels different in here," Brandon said finally. "Because it's quiet?" Camila asked. "No," he said, "because it's warm." She turned to him, confused. "For months after Haley, my wife, died, this place felt like a tomb, cold, dead. Ava cried constantly, and I didn't know what to do. I'd come home just to sit in the garage. I couldn't walk in." Camila didn't speak. She let him say it. "You changed that," he said softly. Her heart stung at the tenderness in his voice. She'd kept her distance emotionally, for Ava's sake, for her own, but hearing this man, this grieving man, open up made her chest tighten. "She's a wonderful baby," Camila whispered. "She just needed someone to stay." Brandon looked at her then, really looked. The candlelight danced on her face. Her eyes were tired but kind. She didn't flinch under his gaze. She held it, steady. "I haven't felt like this in a long time," he said. "Like what?" "Like someone understands me, without asking for anything." He reached out slowly. His fingers brushed her hand. Camila didn't pull away. "I shouldn't," he murmured. "I know," she whispered, but neither of them moved. The space between them grew smaller, quieter. Then, without warning, their lips met. It was soft at first, hesitant. A question, not a statement. But then it deepened. The tension between them, the shared silences, the unspoken grief, all of it poured into that kiss. And when it ended, they didn't speak. Their foreheads rested together. Their breathing was shaky, unsure. Camila finally pulled back. This can't happen," she said, eyes wide. "You're grieving. I work for you. It's wrong." Brandon nodded slowly. "You're right." The next morning he didn't mention it. At breakfast he was all business. Polite. Professional. Cold. Like the kiss had never happened, and it hurt more than Camila expected. The days that followed the kiss were colder than any storm Seattle could conjure. Brandon returned to his familiar armor, pressed suits, clipped responses, meetings that ran late. He didn't avoid Camila, but he made sure never to be alone with her. It was as if he had pressed delete on that candlelit night, as if intimacy had never touched the walls of his penthouse. Camila, for her part, said nothing. She focused on Ava, who continued to thrive under her care, but the warmth she had started to feel for Brandon dimmed beneath layers of confusion and hurt. Had she imagined it all? Was the kiss just grief? Or worse, a mistake he instantly regretted? Still, the house bore the fingerprints of her presence. The food, the order, the quiet laughter from Ava's room. Even Brandon couldn't pretend not to notice. He'd sometimes pause in the hallway, watching Camila from a distance, her hand gently brushing Ava's curls, her voice singing soft Spanish lullabies. He couldn't shake the memory of her lips, but he buried it. Until the box. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Brandon had left early for a quarterly review in Portland, and Camila decided to do a full deep clean of the master bedroom, a task she'd been avoiding. Ava was napping soundly, and the house was quiet, except for the gentle patter of rain on the windows. Inside the walk-in closet, she noticed a cardboard storage box tucked beneath a row of unworn suits. It was unmarked, dusty, and heavy with time. Camila hesitated. She wasn't snooping. She was cleaning. But when she placed the box on the bed and opened the lid, her breath caught. Inside were old photos, love letters, dried flowers, and a black smartphone tucked beneath a velvet pouch. It was still partially charged. The screen flickered to life. Ava's soft cries startled her back into reality. Camila rushed to pick her up and return to the room, the phone still clutched in her hand. "Shh, Michelo," she whispered, bouncing Ava gently. The baby reached for the phone, pressing her tiny fingers across the screen until a video accidentally played. Camila tried to stop it, but then she saw the woman. Haley Morgan, Brandon's late wife. In the video, she was sitting on the exact bed Camila now stood beside. Her face was pale, her eyes tired, but her voice was steady. "If you're watching this, Brandon, I'm probably gone." Camila froze. Her arms tightened protectively around Ava. "There's something I never told you. I adopted Ava, without your knowledge." Her knees went weak. "You were so distant, so buried in work, and I knew you wouldn't understand. I found her in a state-run orphanage in Oregon. She was abandoned. The moment I held her, I knew she was meant for us. I forged the papers. I'm sorry, Brandon, but she is our daughter. She's mine, yours, in every way that matters." The screen went black. Ava reached out and touched Camila's face. Camila kissed her forehead, but her heart raced. Everything changed in that moment. Ava wasn't Brandon's biological child. He didn't know. That night, Brandon returned home late and distracted. Camila tried to act normal. She failed. She spilled Ava's juice, forgot the spoon. Her hands trembled as she cleaned the table. "Camila, are you okay?" Brandon finally asked, frowning. I need to speak with you. In private." In the study, she placed the phone on the desk like it was a loaded weapon. "I found this while cleaning," she said quietly. "Ava accidentally started the video." Brandon stared. His face drained of colour. He pressed play, and as Haley's confession filled the room, Camila watched him unravel. When it ended, Brandon stood silently, as if trying to breathe through cement. "This is a lie," he said at last, voice shaking. "Brandon, no, this is not true. She was pregnant. We planned for this baby. We had ultrasounds." Camila stepped closer. "I don't think she ever got pregnant. She might have faked those records." "Why are you doing this?" he snapped. "Is this payback? Because I kissed you and then didn't—" "What? Fall to my knees?" Her heart cracked. "No, I'm telling you because you deserve to know. Ava deserves to know." "She's my daughter," Brandon barked. "Biological or not. You had no right." "I had no choice," Camila yelled back, eyes blazing. "I didn't want to see it either, but pretending it's not true won't make it go away." A long silence. Then Brandon pointed to the door. "Leave, pack your things and get out." Camila blinked. "What? You heard me. I want you gone. Tonight." She nodded numbly. Her body moved on autopilot. She packed her suitcase in silence, the weight of the moment crushing her lungs. Before leaving, she crept into Ava's room. The baby stirred. Camila leaned down and pressed a trembling kiss to her cheek. "I love you, Angel. I'm so sorry." She left with her heart in pieces. The days that followed were chaos. Brandon hired 3 new nannies in 1 week. Ava rejected them all. She screamed until her voice cracked. She stopped eating. She clawed at her crib, searching for a face that wasn't there. Brandon tried, but nothing worked. He watched helplessly as his daughter faded before his eyes. One sleepless night, after 4 straight hours of Ava's wailing, he broke. He sat on the nursery floor, holding her, whispering, "You miss her, don't you? You miss Camila." Then he stood. He retrieved Haley's phone from the study, watched the video again, this time with different eyes. The next morning, he drove straight to a digital forensics lab. "I need to know if this video is real," he told the technician, no matter the cost. Brandon Morgan had never known silence like this. The penthouse, once filled with Ava's laughter and Camila's warm footsteps, now echoed with absence. The housekeeper he'd hastily hired after firing Camila only lasted 48 hours. The next nanny, a specialist in infant trauma, quit after 1 night. "This baby," she whispered before leaving, "is not just sad, she's grieving." Brandon tried to fill the void. He took leave from his company. He stayed home, tried to feed Ava, tried to rock her, read to her. But the little girl only cried and clung to the edge of her crib like a lifeline had been ripped from her fingers. In moments of desperation, Brandon sat on the cold hardwood floor outside her room, listening to her sobs echo through the hallway. He had never felt more helpless. But worse than Ava's heartbreak was his own. It was in the mornings that it hurt most. He'd come down to the kitchen, still in sweatpants, and instinctively wait for the smell of garlic or cinnamon to hit him. But it never did. No coffee brewed on the stove, no soft jazz in the background, no voice humming lullabies in a mix of Spanish and warmth. Just silence, like the house itself had gone into mourning. And that's when it hit him. Camila hadn't just taken care of Ava. She'd taken care of him too. He missed the way she called him Bran under her breath when she thought he wasn't listening. Missed how she never asked questions but always seemed to understand what he needed. He missed the way she looked at Ava with a kind of love he wasn't sure he even deserved. He hadn't lost a nanny. He'd lost something infinitely more precious. 2 days later, the video forensics report came back. The video is authentic, the technician confirmed. No signs of editing, doctoring, or manipulation. That was your wife, and those were her words. Brandon couldn't speak. He only nodded, feeling like someone had just punched a hole through his chest. That night he watched the video one final time. When it ended, he whispered, "You lied to me, Haley, and I punished the only person who told me the truth." He stood, grabbed his coat and called an old contact at the cleaning company. "I need Camila's address," he said. The woman hesitated. "Mr. Morgan, she doesn't want to see you." "Please, I just want to talk to her. For Ava's sake." The next morning, Brandon drove 4 hours across state lines to Brooklyn, where Camila had grown up and recently returned. His luxury SUV felt suffocating, despite the leather seats and climate control. The entire ride, he rehearsed what he'd say, only to forget it all at every stoplight. He arrived just after noon. Camila was staying with her aunt in a modest brownstone near Prospect Park. The place looked worn, but it radiated something his penthouse never had: life. He climbed the steps and knocked on the front door. A woman answered, older, stern, protective. "You're Brandon Morgan," she said. "Yes, I came to see Camila." "She doesn't want to see you. Please, it's about Ava. And me." The woman didn't move, but something in Brandon's expression must have softened her. She shut the door without a word. Moments later it reopened, and Camila stepped out. She looked different. No makeup. Hair tied back, in jeans and a hoodie. But her eyes, those warm, guarded eyes, still hit him like a punch to the ribs. "Brandon," she said flatly, "what are you doing here?" "I had the video analyzed. It's real." She said nothing. "I was wrong," he continued, voice thick. "About everything. About you. About Ava. About what I felt that night." Camila's expression flickered but remained calm. "So you came to say what? Sorry?" "No," he said. "I came to beg." She blinked. "Ava cries every night. She doesn't eat. She doesn't sleep. She's looking for you. And his voice broke. "I'm looking for you too." Camila folded her arms. "Brandon, you called me a liar. You said I manipulated you." "I know, I was scared. I didn't want to believe that Haley, my perfect Haley, lied to me, and I couldn't admit that you meant something to me." Camila's breath caught, but she didn't look away. "I miss you," he whispered. "Not just because Ava needs you, because I do. Because this house, this life, none of it means anything without you in it. You brought us back to life, and I threw it all away." Camila looked down at her sneakers. "You broke something in me, Brandon," she said softly. "You made me believe I mattered, then made me feel like I was disposable." "I know," he said, "and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." Silence. Then, "I don't know if I can forgive you," she murmured. "I'll wait," he replied, "for as long as it takes." More silence. Camila's arms slowly lowered. "And Ava?" she asked. "She's not the same. She's shrinking into herself. The doctor says if things don't change soon, she could end up in the hospital." Camila's eyes filled with tears. "I never should have left her," she whispered. "No," Brandon said, stepping closer. "I should never have let you go." She looked up at him, finally letting the pain show. "Why now?" "Because I'm done being scared. Because I don't care about DNA or secrets or money. I care about you, and her, and the life we almost had." He took a deep breath. "I didn't come here to hire you back. I came here to ask if you'd give us another chance, not as a nanny, as a family." Camila's mouth trembled. "And if I say yes?" "We go slow. We rebuild trust. And one day, maybe you'll let me love you the way I should have from the start." She hesitated, then whispered, "I'll come back for Ava." He nodded. "But this time," she said, "you have to earn me." Brandon smiled, tears threatening to spill. "I will." The ride back to Seattle was quiet, but no longer tense. Camila sat in the back seat, arms wrapped around Ava, who had finally stopped crying. Her tiny fingers clutched Camila's hoodie, her cheek pressed tightly against her chest, like she was afraid it had all been a dream. From the driver's seat, Brandon watched through the rearview mirror, watched as calm slowly returned to his daughter. Her eyes fluttered closed for the first peaceful nap in weeks. It was like watching the sun rise again after endless night. Back at the penthouse, everything looked the same, but it felt different. Camila stepped inside and was overwhelmed by memories. The kitchen where they first shared a meal, the hallway where Ava had taken her first step, the nursery where she had once sung lullabies by candlelight. And yet this time, there was no fear, no blurred lines. That night, she bathed Ava and rocked her to sleep with the same old lullaby. When she turned to leave, Brandon was standing in the doorway, watching, silently, reverently. "She hasn't slept like that since you left," he said. Camila smiled faintly. "Babies don't forget who loves them." The days that followed were a slow, deliberate return to something fragile but real. Camila didn't move back into the guest quarters immediately. She insisted on boundaries. On honesty, Brandon respected that. He took time off work, spent full days with Ava, learned to cook poorly, changed diapers badly, and asked Camila how to be better, not just as a father, but as a man. One night, Camila caught him in the nursery, whispering to Ava in the dark. "I know I'm not your biological dad," he said softly, "but I'm going to love you harder than any man ever could, because you saved me. You and your mom, Camila. She showed me how to feel again." Camila stood in the doorway, unseen, eyes welling with tears. That was the moment she began to fall in love with him all over again, not as her boss or Aya's father, but as the man he was becoming. 3 months later, the house was full of laughter again. Ava giggled during mealtime, babbled her first words, and one sunny morning crawled into Brandon's lap and said, "Dada." He cried openly. So did Camila. But there was still one thing left to say. It happened on a quiet Sunday evening. Camila was in the kitchen helping Ava stir pancake batter, her latest obsession. Brandon entered, looking slightly nervous in a button-up shirt and holding a small velvet box. Camila turned, wiping her hands on a towel. "What's that?" He walked up, his eyes soft, vulnerable. "I've been rehearsing this for weeks," he said, "but nothing I say will ever be enough to repay what you've given me." He dropped to one knee. Camila's breath caught. "I don't want to keep calling you Ava's nanny, or housekeeper, or ex-employee. I want to call you my wife." He opened the box. Inside was a simple, elegant diamond ring, but the kind that sparkled more with meaning than cost. "Camila Reyes," he said, voice shaking, "you saved my daughter's life. You saved mine. You made this cold house a home. Will you marry me, not as part of a deal, not because Ava needs you, but because I do?" Camila didn't answer right away. Her eyes filled with tears. Then, without a word, she reached down and kissed him. Long, deep, certain. When they pulled apart, Ava clapped her hands with pancake batter still on her fingers. "Yes," Camila whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." 1 year later, Kingston, Jamaica. Under the warm Caribbean sun, Brandon stood in a linen suit in the middle of a lush garden, watching as Camila walked down the aisle on her grandmother's arm, Ava skipping beside her in a white flower dress. Friends and family gathered, many flying in from the US and the Dominican Republic. Even Mrs. Alvarez, Camila's former cleaning company boss, was there, crying uncontrollably in the front row. Camila reached Brandon and took his hands. "You still nervous?" she teased. "Terrified," he whispered back, but in the best way. The ceremony was simple, but the vows were profound. "I don't care how we met," Brandon said. "You weren't part of my plan, but you became my purpose." "You didn't save me with money," Camila replied. "You saved me with faith, the faith to be patient, the faith to try again." When they kissed as husband and wife, Ava threw flower petals into the air and screamed, "Mommy! Daddy!" Everyone laughed. Everyone cried. Epilogue. 2 years later, back in Seattle, their lives weren't perfect. Ava had tantrums, Brandon still burned toast, Camila sometimes doubted herself, but in their little brownstone near the lake, humble, cozy theirs, they were happy. Every night they ate dinner as a family. Every morning Ava burst into their bed yelling, "Wake up! Pancake time!" They didn't need boardrooms or billions. They had each other. And that was enough.